So, hi everybody. Welcome to Expert Talks Online. I'm John Dickinson. I'm Chief Commercial Officer at Equal Experts. For those of you that don't know, Equal Experts is a network of software delivery consultants made up of practitioners with years of hands-on delivery experience. And we help you shape your digital product vision, deliver your digital services, scale your organization with digital platform, and engineer your data for actionable insights. So this evening, we've got a great talk on one of those services. So Adam will be talking about digital platforms. And we've built digital platforms with UK government departments, retail organizations, and payment providers. Each platform is unique to the organization and has allowed them to scale their digital delivery efforts to innovate faster and speed up when adding more digital delivery teams instead of slowing down. So Adam will be giving the talk this evening, Adam Hansrod. He is one of the authors of our digital platform playbook and has been working on a number of our digital platform engagements. Let's just say hello, Adam.
Hi, hello.
Cool. Also, so this evening we're joined in the Q&A session by some of the customers that we're lucky enough to work with that are building and running digital platforms, and they're in different stages of development. So this evening we've got Andrew Shepherd here with us, and Andrew is the product owner of HMRC's digital platform, which enables 130 digital services, over 800 microservices running in production. 60 digital teams use the platform, and they're achieving across the organization about 100 releases a day. Andrew, do you just want to say hello, give people a quick wave?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, John. Yeah, as John said, product owning this PAS, which has, I think, development started back in 2013. I joined HMRC Digital in February 2014, almost 7 years to the day, just as the platform was going live. So yeah, I've seen it through 4 major iterations, and it is very, very different to how we started out. I'd like to say it's now, failure proof, but we saw on the 1st of February that even though it's resilient across 3 AZs, you're still at the mercy of your hyperscale cloud provider, and we suffered a little bit for that, cost us a couple of hours of unavailability.
All right, great. Thanks, Andrew. And then we've also got Ross Burrows with us today. He is the product owner of Pret a Manger's digital platform, and that currently enables 8 digital service teams and 19 digital services. So Ross, do you just want to say hello to the audience?
Yeah, hi guys. Yeah, not feeling at all inadequate next to Andrew's numbers. Clearly, we're at the beginning of our journey, so yeah. Roughly a year ago to the day, I sat with Adam and talked about what we need to do to start things off. So yeah, good to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Ross. And so we're going to run we're running in webinar mode, so everyone obviously is muted. But if you've got any questions during the talk, please use the Q&A panel, as this helps us track the questions and allows you to interact and upvote on any of those questions that you really want answered. And we'll cover the questions at the end of the talk. So thank you very much for joining us. And Adam, it's over to you now.
Sure, let me just share my screen. Can you let me know if you can see the slides? Cool, I can see a group of nodding people. Okay, hi, hello. Thank you for coming to my talk on how digital platforms fail. Hopefully you should go away from this talk with a greater ability to recognize some of the failures that can occur with digital platforms, and with a bit more knowledge about how to address some of those failures. As previously said, my name is Adam Hansrod. We can also see some photographic proof of me once being in an office, which is always great. My day job is working as a consultant with Equal Experts, typically in a technical lead style role, and primarily focusing on building, iterating, and designing digital platforms. I do want to say, a big thank you to everyone else I've ever worked with on digital platforms. All of this talk is possible, and the fact it's even coherent is because of all of their experience that I've been sharing. I want to start this talk off with a quick aside that this isn't a talk about how digital platform business models fail. For things like Deliveroo, where they're connecting restaurants and people together and ensuring that people get some lovely takeaway. This is a talk about creating an internal product that an organization can go and create to enable digital services to be created in speed at scale. It's probably the best thing to start with what is a digital platform. It isn't a runtime for your code. Just having Kubernetes or Lambda available as a runtime doesn't mean you're providing a full environment to create and operate a digital service. A digital platform is there to enable teams to rapidly build, iterate, and operate digital services at scale. And that means combining people, processes, and tools to provide that environment. With tooling capabilities like build and deploy, observability, alerting, networking, infrastructure, you also need the people in that digital platform team to provide things like upskilling, advice on how to tackle certain engineering problems, as well as enablement to upskill people. They also have to help set up the initial processes that those digital services are going to work in, things like change management, audit, accountability, instant response, and those can look vastly different from the rest of an organization. A digital platform is kind of a microcosm of its own, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist completely in a silo. They will have to still work with the rest of that organization, and they'll be bringing in expertise from the rest of the organization, like external change management processes and networking. For the purpose of this talk, I've invented a fake company. It's called Books International. They sell books to people. You go up to a shop, you give them some money, you walk away with a book. Everyone was really happy. However, Books International, they realize this internet, it's not going away anytime fast. So they want to start selling digitally. And like any person on the street, you want to go and see Books International succeed, and you also want to go and see them fail. So over the course of this talk, we're going to go and see them start their own digital platform, and then we're going to see them fail, and then we're going to offer some advice, and then come back to them slightly later and see how they've got on. So they start with a small team. They want to build a first iteration of e-commerce website. They want to dip their toe in the water of the internet gingerly and find out, can we do this? Is this worth the investment? Before we start spending billions upon billions to go and create the world's leading website for selling books online. They want to just, have a small team, maybe 8 people, and see what they can get out fast. And they succeed, and it's great. And they have a first iteration. They can go and take around to all of their stakeholders and prove that, yes, we can do this. But the next question that comes back is, how do we grow that engineering effort? What does it look like to grow good practices like continuous delivery and operability and building quality into the services that are easy to understand and operate in production? A digital platform could be the answer in this context. A digital platform product is a strategic capability for an organization. It's going to increase quality, reliability, security. It's going to reduce costs by introducing economies of scale. It's going to make people ultimately, hopefully, more happier and more productive, as they have to focus less on the things that don't produce a strategic benefit for their organization, and able to focus directly on their users. There are 5 questions that I like to use to determine, is a digital platform right for an organization's context? The first one, will there be multi-year funding? For Books International, yeah, they see it as a strategic capability. They know it's going to require a level of continuous investment. So it's a big check mark for Books International. For our second question, will the digital platform have a homogeneous workload? Yep, it's going to be focused on scaling and serving web-based APIs, maybe some web pages, and we might even have a mobile app consuming that content from the APIs as well. So we know they've got a same-shaped workload. Our third question is, is there a service team who's going to be our first user? We know we already have one at Books International. It's our initial service team that's built that iteration. Our fourth question is, will the digital platform team be empowered? This isn't just are they empowered and do they feel great when they wake up in the morning? This is more around, are they able to make appropriate choices in tooling and processes and customize organization-wide principles to their context? Books International, they're like, yes, the people closest to the problem, they're the ones that will be able to determine the most appropriate tooling and processes. So we get a sign off on that one. And our final question is, will there be 5 or more service teams now or in the future on that digital service team? that digital platform. Books International, they know they've identified 5 to 6 to 8 different domains that they think they need to operate in to provide a strategic differentiator compared to the rest of the market. And they say, yes, we are going to go and have more than 5 service teams. So we've said yes for Books International for all of our questions. We're like, yes, digital platform, let's go and do it. But what if we answered no? What should Books International go and do next? If I was them, I would go and invest directly into iterating on those service teams' ways of working, processes, and toolings. But that's not going to be at the level of investment that's required for a digital platform. However, we can move on now. Books International have said yes, they start their discovery, they start looking at their context, what do they already have available, what has that first service team already used, they plan an inception. And they start their digital platform team, and it's great, and it's amazing. However, the title of this talk isn't how Books International did everything right the first time and didn't get absolutely anything wrong at all. So let's skip ahead 3 months and see how stuff starts to fail. The first failure that we start to see after 3 months is a failure to collaborate with users. This first symptoms that we start to see of that is no service team acted as a first user. Because Books International were in a hurry, they wanted to start seeing results now. They got their first service teams got some given internal deadlines. That meant the digital platform team, while best intentions were kicking off an inception, weren't able to onboard their service team to start with, and they basically had to go off and build a wonderful paradise. But without anyone there, they weren't able to onboard anyone, and because they were focused on building a wonderful paradise, they weren't looking at what the current service teams were having in terms of issues and problems. Luckily, we think we can help with this. Our advice to Books International is, let's go and onboard a service team as soon as possible.
It's never too early to onboard a service team.
So for your first team, don't be afraid of manually onboarding anyone. It's going to teach you a lot more about the tools you have available, the tools you've chosen, and then you can use that knowledge to help automate the right thing for onboarding the second team, the third team, the fifth team, the 100th team. To help fix the bigger problem around collaboration, make sure you're in the room when people are complaining. Build trust with your service teams because they're your users, and make sure they feel like they're being listened to. Everything they're saying is feedback when they complain on the service you're providing, whether they realize it or not. If they're going to a stand-up of stand-ups and they're saying, hey, I'm blocked by this thing, they may not have the experience or skill to know that actually that's a piece of feedback that they can offer to you and it's of value to you. And to make sure you're providing information back to them rather than just being a one-way street, let them know what you're tackling next and get their feedback on them. That doesn't mean a 2-year-long roadmap. It might just mean just giving them a view of the problems you're going to go and tackle in the next 6 weeks, maybe up to 3 months. And make sure you get their feedback on the current work that you're doing and get their input for future problems, whether that's pairing together on spikes or new platform capabilities to help solve small little edge cases. It's always going to help if you get their buy-in. So we've tackled the user feedback loop, the collaboration with the service teams. Books International is in a better place. Let's skip ahead another 3 months. We're starting to see failures around the platform team. They're not enabling continuous delivery and operability. Some of the symptoms we're starting to see is the technology isn't supporting the process. Pipelines are starting to atrophy. They're becoming slower. They start to become non-deterministic. They're flaky. They're rarely succeeding. Because the pipelines are deteriorating, deployments start turning into full-fledged releases. Anytime there's a deployment, it's a big success. Configs and feature flags start getting hard-coded into the deployable artifact. We start losing our ability to react fast because the teams were slow in collaborating with their users. There was a complete lack of templated dashboards and alerting. On the other side of things, the process isn't really supporting the technology. Services start having to be released in lockstep. Over time, that leads to a downward spiral in service quality and team morale. People start getting unhappier and happier. Every time they release, it's a big bang, something goes wrong. This big batch of works that happen. You start seeing more long-lived feature branching happening because it's, oh, well, I've just got all of my work on a branch and we'll merge it in just in time for our release. That causes a big bang. rather than our steady stream of continuous delivery updates and iterations behind a feature flag. How are Books International going to solve this? They need to reduce some of the friction around continuously delivering, and they need to add some guardrails in to keep them on a golden path on a paved road, as you might call it. The digital platform team will need to spend some time understanding their current obstacles to continuous delivery and what the friction there is. They might need to start going and measuring metrics like deployment lead time and deployment frequency. At the same time, they also probably want to start measuring things like mean time to recovery, availability, and latency to see what kind of an impact is the release process, the lack of continuous delivery having on the operability of the services. So we've sorted the user feedback loop, the collaboration. We fixed some of the continuous delivery and operability issues with the teams. Let's skip ahead again and let's see how they're doing. So we've got, a highly performant team. They're working well with their users, but the users are starting to fall back into kind of their old ways of working. They may have come from different organizations and they're not used to working in a continuous delivery fashion or caring deeply about the service's operability. They may not have worked in a you build it, you run it environment before. One thing's really important here as a digital platform team is to remember that not everyone's going to have the experience you do. Not everyone's going to use tools the way you've used tools. And it can be really scary having that amount of change to suddenly come in and change your entire way of working. As a digital platform team, you need to make sure you're helping teams become high performers. You want to act as helping hands. You want to focus on enablement, which is pairing with people, upskilling them, giving them advice, providing them coaching through tooling and processes. Give them example repos like, hello world, here's how I build up a service. This is how I use tracing. This is how I use profiling. And then they can start to understand it and it conquers some of their learning. So again, as time skip ahead, they started to sort out they've started to be helping hands with their teams. They've done the collaboration, they've done the feedback loop. And we find that they've had great success. They've managed to successfully weave people, processes, and tooling into a product. People want to use it. They're having tons of deployments happening. But with that success comes another round of failures that you can start to bump into. There can be a failure to be a product. Stakeholders want to see the success replicated elsewhere. They see that teams are deploying frequently to production. They know that teams can understand what's happening in production via observability tooling. They want to replicate it everywhere. They want to copy and paste the platform as much as they can to get as much success as they can, as fast as they can. And that's great. And they start to take we'll just create a new platform instance for each service team. And over time, we start to see the instance starts to diverge from that core platform as service teams kind of start fixing for their own smaller use cases rather than the generic. And because those service teams are focused on their users, they're not spending the time to contribute that back to the core platform experience. Other service teams might feel less comfortable fixing and maintaining their platform instance because they know they don't understand how the thing was built. They know they don't have the knowledge or the experience to create it from scratch. When you're faced with a failure like this, like Books International might have, what you need to do is you need to treat your digital platform as a product. That means it isn't an SDK or a repository of tooling configuration that can be copy and pasted around your organization. You need to centralize that into one product that all teams can use. There will be edge cases where service teams don't have a fully matching workload. A really good example is something like a payments team, where they'll have really high PCI compliance that they'll need to go and maintain. This will slow down and reduce the delivery that other teams on the platform were able to do, as you have to cater for one specific use case. The best thing you can do in this situation is don't onboard them to your digital platform and make sure they have the resources available to solve their specific problems and maintain a level of continuous delivery operability. So it's time skip again, another 3 months off. We've seen off a potential failure around multiple digital platform instances, but we're still seeing great success with the team. It's awesome. We start seeing another failure here. While there was such a demand to go and copy paste the platform around the organization, now that we've scaled the platform, we start seeing some lower quality work released to users. The team had to grow to accommodate the amount of features and capabilities requested with all of these new teams from around the org. And lower quality features and capabilities got shipped. The platform team started turning into a feature factory, just pumping stuff out. As a reaction, it was decided, hey, well, we'll create a support team. That will help deal with some of the issues coming in, and we can continue pumping out more features and capabilities. We start to see team topologies that look sort of like this, where you've got that core platform team and they're creating new features and capabilities. And then you've got a second team that are just looking after support, dealing with any issues that are coming in. However, those issues aren't going away. The support team are doing great work. They've resolved ever higher amounts of tickets per week. All of the KPIs look great and the OKRs, but the overall number of support tickets arriving doesn't seem to be going down. Low quality still is getting shipped. Having a support team didn't fix that problem. And what has happened here is the platform team have inadvertently removed that user feedback loop, that collaboration they had with their service teams. And to fix this failure, we need to restore that feedback loop. We'll need to merge back in the support team to the digital platform team, prioritize work on the underlying issues that are causing all of these tickets to be created, and make sure you've got a strong feedback loop. But that doesn't completely answer the question about how do you structure your teams as you scale a digital platform. Books International will have to look at their context and split those teams based on the features and capabilities they provide. It's really easy at this point to start looking around your context and realize, oh, we've got a ton of complexity here around build and deploy pipelines. So let's go and spin up a team around that. And so we start to see an evolution there. So while we still have two teams under the platform banner, now they're still focused on their users. You've got build and deploy looking after pipelines and environments, configurability, keeping services scaled and working in a runtime. And you've got enablement, which is kind of the catch-all for the rest of them. But that doesn't mean they haven't got a strong user feedback loop with the rest of their service teams. And as your platform grows, you may have to split those teams further and further. You start to create a telemetry and observability team that's going to look at take a service's logs and metrics and traces and profiles and makes them consumable and usable with templated dashboards and alerts, effective observability tooling. You may also decide, yes, we'll keep the enablement team. They're doing great work, doing internal consulting with service teams on engineering problems, as well as advocating for practices like continuous delivery and operability of services. At a certain scale, you'll start to hit into a natural attrition of people as people just come and go from your organization. Spending some time and investing in a platform sub-team, for want of a better word, on user and service management to make sure onboarding and offboarding is really smooth is incredibly important, as well as spending time to reduce the learning curve for people to onboard onto a platform or onto a digital service team. It's going to pay off greatly in the long term. The last failure we're going to look at is the failure to do one thing well. Books International, they want to form one big platform. They've seen success and they're like, yes, let's go and copy paste this around our organization. And that didn't really work out. And then we started to work out, right, so we can scale our digital platform team, and that's really good. But now they're like, well, you've done great work with the digital platform. Why don't you start looking at our data platform? How can we build a capability there to support that data workload? One thing to remember here is, if you were Books International, is digital platform teams are going to be really good at building a digital platform. A deployment pipeline and a data pipeline are vastly different beasts, and what works really well for a digital platform isn't necessarily going to work really well for a data platform. You don't want to spend time trying to get a single hammer to hammer in all of your screwdrivers when you might just want to go to the hardware store and go and get a screwdriver instead, as it's going to be a better shape to solve the problem you've got at hand. I'll leave you with some final thoughts about what you can do when you go back to your organization. If you haven't onboarded a service team, go and do it now. It's the most important thing you can do. It will solve so many of your problems, and you'll understand the problems that your service teams are facing so much better when you start getting their feedback and start collaborating with them. If your service teams aren't deploying regularly or aren't able to operate their service well, talk to them. Start getting that feedback, start reviewing the processes and tooling, start taking measurements about deployment lead time and frequency, have a look at their mean time to recovery, their availability percentages, their latency percentiles. If they're struggling to adapt to the new processes and toolings, remember to act as helping hands, pairing with them, showing them how they can work in different ways that enable more continuous delivery is going to allow them to become higher performers sooner. If you've got multiple instances of your digital platform, start creating that roadmap to converge them. There's going to be massive efficiency savings and total cost of ownership. While it may look really cheap to just copy and paste some tooling config around an organization, there's tons of hidden costs there around maintenance that you won't be able to easily see. If you have a digital platform support team, try considering other team topologies that create stronger user feedback loops that allow you to provide a consistent service as you scale the number of people to provide a platform to. And finally, if you have a digital platform that's working for a digital workload, don't try and use it to solve a data workload style problem. Thank you for listening for the past half an hour. I'm going to hand back over to John, and hopefully we'll start our Q&A fishbowl.
That's great. Thank you very much, Adam. Awesome. So we have, and so while Adam's been taking us through the talk, everyone's been really busy asking loads of questions in the Q&A. So thank you very much, everybody. Some really good questions there. And also our panelists have been jumping in, answering them as they go, which is excellent. So we've got a set of questions and some starting points for answers to kick off with, which is awesome. So we've got, we'll go through the 4 answered questions to begin with, and the open ones, if people want to just prioritize vote apps or which ones you would like us to move on to next, that would be super. One other note about the approach we're going to follow is we are, if you didn't catch this at the beginning, we're going to, we often try a fishbowl approach, which means that people from the audience, if there's a question being asked or you've got a particular a viewpoint that you'd like to share with everybody, then just raise your hand and you'll be brought in to be a panelist for a period of time to join the conversation. And then if someone else wants to join, they'll raise their hand, they'll be brought in, and then we'll move you out. So actually, as being a part of the audience, you can also join the conversation as a panelist if there are any questions you'd like to venture an opinion on. Hopefully that's all clear, and we'll just go through some of the answered questions. So Ray Corcoran has asked, how do you motivate the service teams to collaborate and take part in the process so that you get appropriate buy-in? Ross, you gave a great answer to this, which I think's had lots of upvotes already. So if you want to, do you want to take us through that one?
Yeah, I'm not going to read the answer. It's I've kind of typed it out, but I'm a firm believer that the platform is a product, probably one of our most important products, and so making that attractive to your customers, just like you do with any other feature team, is the absolute crucial thing you can do here. In my opinion, the beauty of this stuff is the frictionless path, the paved road. I'm not such a fan of the guardrails or the police or the telling teams what they can and can't do, but making the best behavior as easy as possible, I think, is the way that you get teams buy-in, because it frees them up. It kind of helps them offload the thinking they don't need to do without just doing it for them.
Great. And has anyone here seen any challenges with the service teams accepting or adopting a digital platform?
Certainly had experience of generally large, high-profile programs of work that don't get the concept that take it or leave it. If you don't like it, go and build your own. I mean, that's the general attitude, and because it's we've demonstrated over the years that it does what it's supposed to do. We only promise sort of 4 basic things, and that's highly available, performant, secure, good value for money for the taxpayer. So we're very, I suppose we put a lot of constraints on the service teams because we say you've got to write your services in Scala, you're using Mongo, here's your Elk stack, here's your ClickHouse and Grafana, but we give them so much out of the box. And going back to what Ross said, you're digging that pit of success and making it difficult for them not to succeed because you're giving them all of this stuff as standard. And once the proof is in the pudding's in the eating really. Once service teams start deploying to it and see how frictionless that pipeline is, and they start seeing the customer satisfaction ratings, on the government performance platform of their service, and the ability to deploy anytime they want, as many times as they want.
Great. Okay, super. So we've got the next question here, which is from Lindsay Pruer, who's often presented and emceed these sessions himself. So Lindsay's asking, how does the platform team prioritize competing platform feature requests from different service teams? So, for example, 3 teams really need data stores on demand, and there are 3 other teams that need telemetry improvement, X, Y, or Z. So how do we go about prioritizing service teams' needs?
Was Rob going to join in for that? Or, I mean, I can just reiterate what I said there, which is essentially the platform leads, the delivery lead, the product owner, myself. We shouldn't be the ones who have to make these calls because each of the platform teams is a technical specialism. They own their own stack, and they have their own product owners and delivery leads as well. So they can make those calls, but it's not that uncommon for us to have to discuss that and agree a way forward during our daily, scrum of scrums. It's not a dictatorial thing, but sometimes it helps if somebody comes into that discussion who has a much wider contextual view of the organization as well.
Sorry. Hi.
Thanks, Andrew. That's great. Hi, Rob. You've joined us. That's awesome. Do you want to jump in with an answer to that?
Yeah, I guess for me, so I work for John Lewis. We've got a platform team, 2 teams there. I'm product owner across both those teams. I think it does very much come down to a value call. So for me, looking at those two different pieces, it's what's of benefit to us in terms of maybe reducing our overhead, our workload, our manual steps in terms of providing them data store, telemetry, or whatever. And offsetting that also against the value of what those teams will get out of it. So it's those things for me. I'm lucky that I don't have lots of other teams that I have to mediate between, I guess. So I've got a little bit of control over what we do.
Cool. And so in terms of determining that value, is there anything about the value of the end service that is requesting the changes that has an impact on it, or is it?
Yeah, it's kind of understanding what they want those features for, and then balancing and weighing that up against the cost of doing them and what it brings us from a platform point of view as well. So yes, absolutely.
Great. Okay, excellent. So then we've got some of the other questions here. So Sheila passed on a question that had been asked offline, which was someone wanted answered. So how long do you think it takes before a digital platform can produce a great service for their service teams? And I'm giggling because I'm going to give your answer for you if it's all right, Andrew. But I think this is a good conversation for us to have, which is we didn't get great for 4 years, which I think is implying it's a long-term investment, which is, I think, a theme that's been repeated. But yeah, it'd be great to hear people's experience of how long they think it does take for the digital platform to be able to provide great services for their service teams.
I can say from a John Lewis point of view that we're still improving. I don't think it's ever done its continual improvement all the way through. So I don't know at what point you consider yourself good, but I know we've got areas to improve in. I think we're really good, but we can always do better.
Do you measure do you measure any kind of customer satisfaction from service teams? Is there a way of getting that feedback from service teams to provide a view of whether the platform is great?
No, I keep on meaning to do it. Actually, we've been talking about doing a bit of an NPS score on a regular basis. So to try and do that across the platform, to be honest, internally we use Slack quite heavily, and we've got our own digital platform channel that acts as a bit of a community and also a point of question support into the teams. And you definitely get feedback from the teams on the platform when you're not doing a good job and when you could do better. And you also do get praise when you've done the right thing and you put something in place that teams are benefiting from. So we get very good immediate feedback from our use of tooling, Slack, and other bits. But yes, we don't have anything that's probably quantified, let's say.
I think some of that, you know, as Rob says, some of that is back to Adam's point on being in the room and being part of the conversations, to get that real-time feedback, to hear the 4 or 5 niggles that actually the platform team can draw together into a piece of functionality. I think being part of those conversations, or at least overhearing them, is really crucial. Slightly difficult right now, admittedly.
Yeah, it's such a, I mean, I'd echo what both Rob and Ross have said, and Slack in particular, actually. I mean, it's such a great enabler. It's such an organic process in keeping in touch with your users as well. Nobody wants to just be spammed with a survey once every 6 months from people they don't know. You know, having said that, every now and again, I can remember 2 pieces. I've done 4 different roles in the 7 years I've been in digital, and I've done 2 proper serious pieces of user research using a proper user researcher for various reasons, one of which to help us to put together the platform vision, which was thankfully dovetailed with what we thought, people running the platform, and what the platform, the different teams on the platform thought as well. It's always good to top that up every now and again with something a bit more formal and structured, but we certainly don't survey our users all the time. We have a very, very close collaboration with them. And back in the old days, we used to actually travel and see them.
But it's an interesting point about using the same techniques that other product, consumer-facing product teams would use when you're saying about user research to help identify and dig deeper into their needs.
Yeah, it's there'd be nothing worse than, especially with an overall, you know, vision for a platform, that you're doing things that you assume are what your users really, really want. So, you know, we run a very big operation. I suppose, you know, we've got a sizable budget. You know, I've got that budget. I'm responsible for that. So I'm going to be spending millions of pounds every year on this thing. I don't want to be doing it on an assumption. You know, I'm pretty sure this is what they want. And as it turns out, we were right. But we got a lot of other feedback in that as well, which sort of helped us to be a bit more specific, add some specific value in some areas.
All right, brilliant. So we're going on to the unanswered questions now. So we've got a question from Ben, which has been voted to the top. It says, where do you see the practice of security in this model, so in the digital platform model?
This is a great question and really relevant for me at the moment, because we're spending a lot of time looking at security on my current client. Secure engineering principles, that's got to be part of your service team's ways of working. You can't be the guardian stopping stuff going out of the door. You have to be the enabler. In terms of how do we get security tooling in processes and get that all in place? That can definitely be kind of a capability team or a product team within that platform banner. looking and working directly with the service teams on making sure they're aware of things like the OWASP top 10. So I definitely see it kind of sitting within the platform team, but they're not responsible for the security of all the digital services ever. Individual teams are responsible for their own security of their service. I don't know if any of our product owners have differing views or further kind of experience with setting up security on a platform.
Well, I'd agree with that. We created a platform security team about 3 years ago, which is focusing on all of those good security development practices. But for the platform itself, we're not resourced to be policing what is about 1,000, somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 people, across that service team community. We are doing stuff on that at the moment, working with them and providing them with some AppSec training and guidance and consultation stuff. But it's guidance. I suppose it's guardrails in a way, but it's not a constraint. It's just we're trying to be helpful without taking responsibility away from them.
I guess for me, similar. I think there's also something in a bigger organization of having someone within your team that can kind of help influence wider security process, wider approaches. We've got a lot of requests into us in terms of how we're securing the platform overall from our kind of wider organizational security teams, and having someone that can be that kind of point of contact and then out into the wider service teams is useful and helpful. But also we can influence and improve wider security processes in terms of ways of working and modernizing it in some ways in places as well. So I definitely, security engagement involvement within the platform team for me is essential.
Yeah, I think it's a really important balance to get there. It's super important and really helpful for service teams if there's a single point of contact, perhaps from the rest of the business, to talk to, and typically that's in the platform team. But you don't want to become an extension of the security team, and that means my service team doesn't have to think about it in the same way that you shouldn't. Your service teams are responsible for observability of their own services. They're responsible for the security of their own services too.
Great. Excellent. Oh, thanks for the feedback, Ben. So that sounds like you've given him some good food for thought there. That's awesome. Thank you. And we've got actually just on the chat, which is coming to the panelists from Robin. So security principles need to be standardized and adhered to by all platforms. Security process and checklists should be consistent. So there's an idea there about, I think Robin sharing something about making sure there are checklists that are easily accessible to maybe service teams and platform teams. So the next question is from Cesar Rodriguez, which is there any reason why the number 5 or at least or 5 or more teams is relevant for the service teams in the organization? I think that's about why is 5 the limiting number for starting a platform?
To me, myself and some of the other lead authors on the Digital Platform Playbook, we came up with the number 5 as an easy way to simplify the complexity of the amount of investment you're going to have now and in the future, and the amount of services that you think are a strategic differentiator for your organization. It's a rule of thumb. It's worked pretty well for us in the past in terms of guiding, yes, this should or should not. You may have different experiences. You might be able to do it well with 4 or 3. But it's just a relative amount of how much are you going to invest on reducing that overhead and increasing quality and encouraging continuous delivery.
Super, thanks, Adam. And then another question that was provided before the talk. So do we have, or do you have any advice, experience on how to provide 24/7 out-of-hours support for this type of platform? Or how, I think maybe also in broadening that, how does out-of-hours support, 24/7 support work across platforms and service teams?
I'll just say that from my experience, the sort of effectiveness of that 24/7 support was directly proportional to the confidence that we had in the platform itself. So, you know, until we moved into AWS and away from, we were running active into small single data center cloud providers, you know, we had a lot of problems, you know, and people didn't really want to be on support. I'd say getting into hyperscale was reaching our equilibrium. We have one infrastructure engineer who does support, and that makes sure the platform is always there. The service teams, it's up to them if they want to do out-of-hours support, and quite a few of them do. Funny thing was, quite funny in hindsight anyway, for about the first 3 years, they actually thought that we were supporting their services. And that's because every now and again, if something fell over in the middle of the night, as a favor, the engineer would sort of get up, see an alert, you know, restart a container or do something like that. And it came as a bit of a shock when we told them, no, we haven't been supporting your applications, which actually it's quite good because it means they were pretty stable apps. You know, they weren't falling over all the time. But anyway, it depends on the business stakeholders as well. If you've got a high profile service, self-assessment filing in January, if you've got tax credit service, May, June, July, then there is an element of out of hours that service teams provide as well, just in case. But I don't know what they're going to do at 3 o'clock in the morning, if they're going to start writing code and deploying it. I doubt it. I think they're going to put up a shutter page.
And is that sort of the I think there's lots of nods from the others on the call. It sounds like that's the general pattern, is separating the concerns around 24/7 between the digital platform and the services running on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's super easy to slip into the behavior that Andrew spotted. I spotted probably 4 or 5 months ago the platform team being described as the support team, and just, you know, in our next retro said that's a message we're changing. And you know, as much as we kind of talk about the tools and the platform itself, this was just a massive PR drive from us to say, you know, this is how support works. You support your services. We will give you the tools, the know-how, the expertise if you want it, but you support your service.
Great. All right. Thanks all. So Rich has got a couple of questions here. I'm going to skip over the top one for now, because I think we talked quite a bit about the feedback loop and how to get feedback from end users in the prioritization question. But Rich has got another question here, which is hard-coded feature flags are pretty easy to do, but have obvious downsides of being difficult to track. Do you have a preferred tool or service to control them instead? So I think maybe the angle here is this one of the things that could be seen or has been seen as a platform capability provider to digital service teams?
I think the most lo-fi version you can do with kind of feature flags and controlling them is just environment variables on the services and flicking them on and off via kind of your infrastructure as code pipeline for your service. But you can then move that up into bigger scale multivariant testing and A/B tools like LaunchDarkly. They're really good ways to track rolling out of new features and new work amongst your users.
Okay, great. And we have got all right. So another one put in ahead of time. I think we'll make this the last one, because I just want to spend a few minutes talking about some of the follow-on talks that we've got coming up. But another question that was raised before the talk. So how many service teams running digital platforms, and how many internal platform teams support them? Do you think you need more more platform teams or less? So I think the an element here is thinking about the ratio of the size of the digital platform team supporting number of service teams. Are there any? How does that work? Are there any scales of economy that come out of that, or is it more of a lesser, like a smaller but linear increase?
So there's definitely an equilibrium. There's at the moment we've got a ratio about 9:1. So there are 85 people who work on MDTP, on the digital tax platform. There are 7 technical specialisms. There's a team of apprentices as well. There's 10 of them. So you could say there's 3 industry placements. So there's like 72 people who are actually part of those 7 functional specialisms. We probably hit that equilibrium in terms of overall numbers about 3 years ago. And as far as I know, there's always been, for the last few years, somewhere between 55 and 65 service teams. So we don't need, there isn't a technical specialism we're not covering. All the tech stacks are covered. We don't need anyone else on those teams, as far as I'm concerned, in order to support. Whether there were 100 service teams, it shouldn't really make any difference. There might be a few more within our platform operations team because their work is more consultancy than the other teams, because they're full of Scala developers. So they spend a lot of time talking to the service teams and helping them to, develop their services in Scala in the best way to run on the platform. But if you're not doing, 80% or so consultancy work, it's probably, you don't need to add any more to that.
I guess in pure numbers, we've got 2 platform teams at the moment, about 12, 13 people within those platform team. And then we've got about 30 teams running on the platform and about 60, 70 services. So we've managed so far, but I think it's always a constant check. It's a what do we need to do next for us? So it's keeping an eye on that kind of front door activity, that kind of operational side over new feature delivery, and I think it's understanding that balance. And when it starts to tip more towards the operational side of things, there's probably something that needs to be done there in terms of kind of process improvement, continual improvement within the team, and then also just looking if you've got the right economy of scale in terms of your platform team.
Yeah, and at the absolute polar opposite end of that scale, I can't talk about volume. We've got 8 or 9 service teams, so we've had one platform team throughout, and for probably 40% of that time, that one platform team was 1 or 2 people. What I think is really important, though, is that you need it at the beginning. With one service team, with 5 service teams, you need that platform team up and running, embedding this stuff.
Yeah, I think the only thing you've got to be careful of is not becoming a department and just mirroring your organizational structure, but in a different form. That's probably key for me. I'd like to keep it as small and as compact as possible. It helps. It just helps with just being able to deliver a new capability into teams.
All right, brilliant. That's awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for your input. I think what we're going to do is we'll call it we'll call it a day there, because everyone's spending a lot of time on Zoom calls, so we don't want to be running over. But I'd like to say thank you very much, everyone, for joining this evening and your excellent questions. Big thank you to our panelists, Andrew Shepherd, Ross Pires, and Rob Hornby. And also Adam, thank you very much for an excellent talk. It's really good. Really thoroughly enjoyed it. I just want to say a few words before we close about the next Expert Talks Online that is taking place next week. So we're doing something a little bit different. So next week it's the run up to International Women's Day, which is on the 8th of March, so the following Monday. But we're running a series of lightning talks. Each is about 10 minutes by women from the Equal Experts Network. The first of these talks is on Wednesday, the 3rd of March. So that's next Wednesday at 8 a.m. I'll be hosting again, and I'll be joined by Bethan Tibbins, who's our Managing Director in EE Australia and New Zealand, Abby Bangsa, who is a Site Reliability Engineer, and Neha Dat, who is a Product Consultant. Bethan will be explaining how to use the cost of delay to prioritize cloud migration. Abby will talk about exposing the language barrier in software delivery, and Neha's talk on Decolonize, Design, Deliver will shed light on deeply held beliefs and assumptions holding back a truly inclusive approach to delivery, and will share some practical steps that we can take to overcome that. The second session is on the same day, but at 6 p.m. GMT time. And will be hosted by our founder, Thomas Granier. And your speakers there will be Lisa Copeland, who's our SVP of Client Engagement in EE North America, Julia Bellis, a product consultant, and Katie Coleman, a VP of Client Engagement again in North America. So Lisa will talk about how digital race is on and how companies are keeping pace in today's digital ecosystem. Julia makes the case that Florence Nightingale was a pioneer of agile ways of working, and Katie we'll talk how to reframe change and adopt new behaviors to make them stick to support an ever-evolving and changing world. So I'm really excited, really looking forward to those lightning talks next week. But again, I'd like to say thank you everybody for joining us this evening. Great questions, great talk, and I just love the insight from people who are really doing the do with digital platforms and making it work and at all different stages of their journey. So thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate it.